The first article for today is the featured news. The featured news is a news from Sri Lankan coast where a ship sank and this ship was carrying hazardous substances. Hence, there was a lot of marine pollution because of it. Therefore, in this article, what we will cover is what is the relation between marine trade and pollution? What are the impacts of it and how can it be resolved? So let's start the discussion. Lately, a ship called as Express Pearl, it sank near Sri Lankan coast, near Colombo. The ship was carrying hazardous substance and it all spilled over in the marine sphere. Now this impact has not only troubled Sri Lankan coast, but it will also impact India and as much as the Southeast Asian coast. Now, the ship was carrying nitric acid and certain microplastics as well. These are corrosive substances and they could lead to harming the marine life. For example, the coral bleaching. Let me show you the way this was captured. This is Indian Coast Guard trying to douse the fire, and these are Sri Lankan ships trying to douse the fire, and this is the ship Pearl which later got drowned. And this is the kind of spillage. The colored water that you see is nothing but oil and the chemical substances. What will happen? One very simple impact I can show you right now is the coral bleaching. Coral are naturally colorful places, but when bleaching happens, this is what happens. They discolor, right? So this is one of the impacts. Getting back to the article, we must understand that 80% of the global trade by volume is carried out through marine areas, and that also amounts to 70% of trade by value. That means the total amount, it is 70% through marine areas and 80% by the amount that is carried, right? So that is why marine trade is very, very important. However, this also leads to increased risk of disaster, right? The pollution that it can cause, the kind of spillage it can cause, right? Therefore, we must understand the kind of marine pollution this results into. First of all, oil spillage, right? Whenever the ships move, the ships can spill oil into the water. Also, when the ships get drowned in case of accident, the water gets spilled. So around 12% of the water spilled in the ocean is through oil spills of these ships, right? That is a smaller quantity as compared. However, this is two-third of this spill is through marine vessels. Now this is something that can be reduced. So this is first impact. The first impact of global trade, oceanic trade on marine pollution, on marine areas is the oil spills. The second one is dry bulk cargo release. Now a lot of substances are carried, minerals, iron, aluminium, all kinds of ores are carried, right? Coal ore, grain, bauxite. Now whenever at times in case of accident they have to be released in ocean, then this also gets released, and this could be corrosive material, this could be reactive material, this could lead to certain disasters in the marine areas as well. Not only that, but there are operational releases. For example, if iron ore is washed at the coast before it is carried by the trains at the coastal areas, so a lot of release, operational release, the kind of liquid substances that release in the ore, they are released in the ocean. This is another level of pollution. The third one is ballast water discharge. What is ballast? Ballast relates to weight, the weight of the ship. Now, if ship is empty, ballast water is filled in it so that the ship has some density. Even while it is light, if it is going through the bigger channels or water bodies, it should not destabilize itself. So this is ballast water. However, when ship is full, then ballast water is removed. Now, if this ship was carrying oil from Gulf area to India, right? So this ship will be full and there will be no ballast water. However, when the ship is going back from India empty to the Middle East, it might contain ballast water. Now this water, when it is released to later have the oil in the ship, right, to balance its weight, this oil is released and this discharge can lead to invasive species in the local area. How? For example, now if this water contains microorganisms, turtles, fishes, which are local to India, but they are invasive or exotic to that particular place, for example, Middle East, they will hamper the aquatic ecosystem of that region. And this is what happens because of global trade. India and world over, the regions, aquatic regions are impacted because of ballastic water discharge. This is one problem that all the ecosystems, marine ecosystems are facing. The next one is solid sound pollution. Whenever these bodies move through marine areas, they will cause sound pollution. They will cause light pollution to those areas as well, right? So this is another level of pollution. End of life ship disposal. Now when the ships end their life, we discussed this in one of the videos previously, that India has introduced a regulation for the inland ships, inland water containers, right? So this is also possible for the marine ships as well. When the life ends, when they are disposed of, right, they are dismantled, they are taken to ship breaking yards, right? What happens there? When they are dismantled, a lot of fumes they discharge, there is vibration, there is noise. If this is done in marine areas, what will happen to the ecosystem, the flora and fauna of that region? How will the organisms survive? So this is another threat. And the last one here is port building. Whenever a port is built, especially a green project, right? So it also impacts the hydrology of the region, right? Suppose we have to build some structures, it increases the height, but what happens to the marine life at that place? The contamination, the land reclamation projects where marine areas are reclaimed to build a project. So these are all impacts that we see because of the increase in marine trade. But how does it impact? How does it actually impact? We just saw what happens. How does it impact? The first one is, for example, effect of plastic pollution. In this case also, the ship which sank near the coast of Colombo, there was a lot of plastic pollution released in this case. Now this microplastic gets absorbed by organisms. These organisms bioaccumulate because they are not able to disintegrate this plastic. It gets accumulated in their body, and then when humans eat these organisms, this gets biomagnification of microplastics. This is carcinogenic. This is going to impact the health of all the organisms in the chain, in the food web. This is one impact. Dead zones. Now there is an impact of this which creates dead zones. How? Now when these particles get spread into the water, then they release such particles, for example, nitrogen related particles. Now these are important for the growth of microorganisms, right? Planktons. So when these start to grow in those areas, they will flourish so much that they will consume a lot of oxygen in that particular water resource, water area. And when they grow and they consume a lot of oxygen, what is left is less oxygen. So this is a condition called as hypoxia. And this impacts the whole ecosystem. Why? Because this will impede the growth, the evolution, the birth of other organisms in that local area. So hypoxia is the condition. And because it impedes in the growth of other organisms, it leads to dead zone formation. Now there are as many as 400 major dead zones around the world. Have a look at this figure, right? So these are the red circles are the dead zones. You will see the dead zones at all the places which are near coastal areas and have high population, right? Which are the examples? For example, look at the California coast. Look at the east coast of America. A lot of population residing in these areas. Brazil, east coast here. Look at the coast of India, almost all colored in red and orange, right? So the red and orange zones are two zones. One is hypoxia zone and the others are eutrophication zones. What are eutrophication zones? Now these are the places where a lot of discharge takes place. For example, discharge from agricultural waste, discharge from industrial waste, effluents. Now these are also similar. The characteristics is similar. When they contain nitrogen, when they contain sulfur, and those kind of minerals which result in increased mineral presence in water. This increased mineral presence causes the increase in planktons and then again decrease in oxygen levels, right? So similar activity, you can see them all happening throughout Europe, through Southeast Asia as well, and East Asia. So this is what is causing suffocation in the marine spots. Okay, so we just understood what are dead zones. This leads to eutrophication. Eutrophication is they are very similar concepts. Eutrophication, dead zones, hypoxia. So eutrophication is the increased presence of such minerals in these areas, right? And resulting in lack of oxygen, right? This also leads to acidification, right? How? Now when temperatures are rising and the acid is being spilled in the water, it leads to increased CO2. Also global warming. When global warming is happening, the ocean has got its capacity to absorb carbon dioxide. It will keep on absorbing carbon dioxide and it will result in acidification of oceans. This will further get accentuated meaning it will deteriorate the situation, because the ecosystem, for example, coral reefs, they do not survive in acidic conditions, and that is why this is another cause of concern. Oil pollution. Now, the plants, organisms which live in water, can they live in oil? It is not possible for them to live in oil, and therefore they will reduce their activities, for example, essential activities like photosynthesis. The performance of biological activity in ocean areas will decrease. What will happen to humans? The amount of fishing, there will be lesser productivity. Tourism, we will not go to those areas which are polluted. Even coast along the Mumbai harbor, they are impacted because of marine pollution, right? So tourism gets decreased in those areas because of contamination. So what can be done here? What can be done is such organizations like MARPOL. Now MARPOL is an important organization, international organization in marine areas, right? Now associations like this can cause that important impact, right? Associations which can help to decrease such kind of pollution, right? We need to have the technologies, for example, the kind of fuel that we use that can be cleaner fuel, right? In ships as well. So marine fuels need to be cleaner. We need to have zero emission marine vessels, right? These are important things. The discharge must not be put in those areas, right? There must be separate containers, or the discharge has to be managed in a better manner, right? Another one is regional organizations. For example, we have Coast Guard. We just saw that Indian Coast Guard were also involved in dousing the fire in that particular ship. So Coast Guard also has its role to play, right? Now, we understood that these are the impacts. First of all, how they are related, how marine pollution and trade are related, the impact that it has, right? And then what are the way forward? So this is what we discuss in this article, and some important key facts for you, right? For example, 12% of the oil in the ocean, that is because of spill, right? We have got a lot of trash, especially the microplastic trash that is thrown in the oceans, right? Important to know is that there are two countries, China and Indonesia. They are responsible for a lot of marine pollution, and as much as these two countries combined, they cause as much as 33%, 1/3 of ocean pollution, right? So this is what it is. Ingestion and entanglement, right? The body of the organism gets caught up in plastics. So these are important impacts, right? After having understood all this, you can try to attempt this question on marine pollution. Examine the impact of global trade on marine pollution. Impact of global trade on marine pollution. Suggest remedial measures. We have covered this in the article. However, a quick recap of what we just went through. In the context of this important disaster which happened, this was the worst environmental disaster for Sri Lanka. But imagine the kind of disaster it is for the animals and plants surviving in the marine areas. So let's see the relation between them, the marine trade and the marine environment. First of all, oil spills. So note down this important word, oil spill. 12% of oil spill. The second one is the dry bulk cargo release. Now these are some technical words which can fetch you more marks. Just note this word down, you will understand the meaning because I've explained earlier. Ballast water discharge, an important issue, right? Then sound pollution. What about the ship dismantling, right? So another industry is about end of life ship breaking, ship dismantling, and port building. So these are important concerns. Now impact of doing all this, we will just note down the keywords here. So important keyword is plastic pollution. The second one is dead zone, creation of dead zones, eutrophication, and then we go ahead to understand acidification. Just note these words down, keywords, and then fishing industry and tourism. The important body MARPOL, note this word down, and some technological solutions like using cleaner fuel and zero emission vessels, right? Okay, one good example of Coast Guard can also be given as I demonstrated.